the 55th edition of the greatest spectacle in all of sport fishing, the Super Bowl of bass fishing. This is the Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic presented by Under Armour. And let me ask you, Fort Worth, Texas, are you ready?
So I was born into a fishing family. My dad is super hardcore tournament angler. He just brought me up with it. I won my first tournament with him when I was 3 years old. You know, he'd set the hook and hand me the rod and I'd reel the fish in. And you know, I still have the plaque in my room, and I have a little picture of little tiny Easton holding the plaque next to that little plaque in my room. It's a pretty cool thing. Obviously I don't remember that now, but that's the tournament that got me hooked. And just, you know, from then on, my dad got me in more and more tournaments every single year. And he's just reminded me as I was growing up, like, you know, you work hard, you know, you can achieve anything you ever want. And, you know, I really didn't see that as a young kid, but, you know, as I've gotten older and, you know, I've been able to achieve some of my dreams, you know, and it all makes sense now. It's pretty cool how all that's worked out. He helped me start the high school fishing team when I finished 8th grade. And that's where really it all started. That's when we started traveling all around the state, competing against high school anglers. And then my junior year of high school is when I started looking into college. Ultimately decided I wanted to go south to learn how to fish southern waters, because, you know, if I ever did want to fish professionally, you know, at least 6 or 7 tournaments every year in the south. So I knew that was going to be crucial if I ever wanted to chase this dream. Went down there at the University of Montevallo, and, you know, just it all started there. That's when I really fell in love with actually traveling the country. And that's when I ultimately decided, like, hey, I really want to make a run at this and do this for a living. When you first move down south from Minnesota, there's, you know, it's a big learning curve. The fishing's a lot different than it is in Minnesota. Had a really tough couple years, you know, when I first moved down south. And then I would say my junior year is when the wheels started to click, you know, having all those kids at school. You know, we had 50 kids on our team, and being able to bounce ideas off those kids every night at the boat shed. You know, all that, you know, your toolbox just gets so big after you learn so much from those kids, and you can just apply that to basically any fishery you go around the country. Yeah, I mean, the whole brain abscess thing, it really taught me a lot about life. It taught me, you know, how fragile it really is. And obviously that was an extremely scary moment for me. Really didn't think I was going to make it out of the hospital for a time, let alone fish again. I mean, you know, I was a couple weeks before the college classic bracket, you know, the tournament that I knew could make my dreams come true. And, you know, and then I thought everything was going to be taken away from me there for a little while. So it was a very scary time, but I think that's another reason why I've had the success I've had since then, is after that moment in my life, literally nothing in life can scare me. I mean, I'm just grateful to be anywhere that I'm at, just grateful to even be here. I mean, it just makes, you know, all the decisions on the water, decisions in life, just makes it so much easier that, you know, I appreciate everything so much more, and just really happy to be here. I was at a very low point in my time, but, you know, I was able to pull through it, and it just taught me so much about life in general and just how you have to take it all in and be appreciative of everything. The highs don't last forever and the lows can't last forever, so when you're at a low, you just gotta know that it can't last forever, and you just gotta keep working, and just know that it can't stay low forever, and it will, you know, the sun will rise the next day, sort of thing. So you just gotta work your way through those lows and, you know, just ride the highs as long as you can. It was always very daunting for me in college, like, how am I gonna fish the opens? Like, I knew I was gonna have to go to work for a couple years and that sort of thing, because the opens is very expensive, and I just was not financially there to do it. So, you know, I win the bracket tournament, and I'm driving home, and I'm like, oh my, I get to do the opens like next year, like so much sooner than I was expecting. And it was just so exciting for me to be able to do it so soon, because I was not expecting that. And it just, it sped up my dream by, a couple of years. I would have hopefully gotten there eventually. It would have just taken more time, but yeah, I mean, it's just super grateful that, it all came together for me and I was able to make it happen. And then, yeah, just the happiness that I had, I guess, of being able to do the Opens the very next year. And quite honestly, I was not expecting to have the Opens year that I did. I just saw Leech Lake on the schedule, and that's my home lake. So that was the first thing I thought of, was I get to compete on Leech Lake, a Bassmaster Open on my home lake. So that was a super cool thought for me. And little did I know the Open season that I would, end up having. So, but yeah, just crazy cool how it all unfolded. My advice for a college angler is, you might not see it now, but it does start now, the journey to get to the professional level. You got to put 110% into college fishing. That's your time to learn the absolute most in your career. You have all the resources around you, all the kids that you compete with on your team. Those are people to learn from. And I can say after college, I guess it's a lot harder to learn from people after college. It's kind of weird how that works, but in college, all the kids together on a team, all they want to do is learn. No one really hides anything from each other. Everyone's in the same boat. They all just want to learn. So that's the best time you're going to have in your life, to bounce ideas off each other and just learn from each other. Social media is a big deal now. Just keep people updated on what you're up to. And then from there, a lot of people in the college age doesn't realize it, but when you go to a tournament, start the relationships with companies, while you're at those tournaments. A lot of the guys that you want to talk to, the guys and women that work for the companies, they're the ones that are at the tournament meetings and that sort of thing. So just start making relationships with those people. And yeah, just work hard, social media, and make relationships. And then that's the three things that you need to make it to the professional level. One of my big things with tournament fishing is more tournaments are won in the last 5 minutes than the first 5 minutes. And what Yamaha does for me is it allows me to push it to the very last minute. I have full confidence that I'm going to make it into tournament or make it into the check-in, on time. So I can't say how many last-minute clutch fish catches. Obviously the Classic is a prime example. Caught that 8-pounder at 2:30. I was quite a ways away from the ramp, and there's giant waves, and I was really pushing it to the last minute, and I'm able to do that. No second thoughts in the back of my mind. Running Yamaha. My dad has always run a tiller boat, and he's had a Yamaha on it for as long as I can remember. And yeah, I mean, it's just a motor that, through him I've always believed in. He's always loved Yamaha, and with that, I've kind of mirrored all my dad's thoughts growing up, his mindset, his competitiveness, and also that's just another thing that I've kind of mirrored, his love for Yamaha. And yeah, it just makes it mean a lot more when you grow up with a Yamaha, to be partnered with them now. It's definitely super special for me. So I'm standing on stage, it's me and Trey, and I knew I had a really good shot. Ever since I caught that 8-pounder, I knew I was going to be really tough to beat. But when my weight showed up on the screen, like he said, I needed 14-something pounds. It was just complete shock. It just, all throughout the week, it just feels so out of reach, even though I'm 1 out of 56 anglers. The multitude of what it takes to win the Classic is pretty insane. And, just every day we went on, after the first day, and then I had a massive day 2, it just felt more and more kind of real as we went on. And just to see it actually happen on that little computer screen, and then for Mercer to announce it, it was just a complete shock for me. And I think you could probably see it in my face when I'm standing on stage. So. Holy cow, I did it. Like I said on stage, both my high points in life now have come after low times in my life. Winning the College Classic bracket, after all my health stuff. And then, having some of my worst finishes in my life, I lost all confidence in my tournament fishing, honestly, after those first 2 Florida events. Really had to regroup going into the Classic. I went home and caught as many fish as I could just to get my mojo back. And then went into the Classic and had just a dream week. And yeah, it was definitely, having those 2 tough tournaments made it mean even more to me than it would, if I had still been on a roll. So definitely the Classic will probably never be topped in a, most meaningful tournament in my career. I'm Easton Fothergill. I just won the 2025 Bassmaster Classic. My dad's always told me that, you work hard, anything's possible. He kind of, put that into my brain at a very young age. And he's just reminded me as I was growing up, like, you work hard, you can achieve anything you ever want. The biggest thing I've learned with fishing is it's all about confidence and just riding the momentum. When you have the high swings, you just gotta ride it as long as you can. When you have the low swings, you just gotta work your way out of it.